Good afternoon, Wrestle Talk Show fans, and welcome to another edition of Wrestle Talk Show. I'm your host, Joshua Zimmerman, here again with wrestling's news, rumors, debate, forum, everything current in wrestling brought to you right here on a daily basis or every other day, as you've noticed with us. We kind of throw it up there as it comes in, like the day of or the day after. Let's start off real quick by thanking the usual, the YouTube following, the Facebook following, all the subscribers on YouTube. We urge more and more to subscribe as we've updated our profile to make our appearance, our presence bigger in the YouTube community. That's seemed to help out a little bit with viewership. I hope that it continues to help out. Real quick with the ratings, we'll start off with this is last week into this week's show. Raw for 10/5/2010, last night's Raw, scored a 3.3, and you gotta think because WWE made it dummy proof. They had nowhere else to go but the aftermath of Hell in a Cell and John Cena being with Nexus. So it was more or less, it was a good Raw. Story driven, not so much wrestling driven. People came out and cut promos and kind of, like I said, story driven. So it was a little different. And now that Sci-Fi and USA Network are both owned by Universal, we're starting to see glimpses of cross promotional stuff. So you might want to predict, I'm predicting that the brand split will kind of void itself out if this relationship continues to bring improved ratings. SmackDown for 10-1, the Sci-Fi debut, scored a 1.7. They were shooting for a 2.0 or higher. But you got to wonder with these ratings if it isn't give or take, because I've heard on a lot of them, give and take, because I've heard on a lot of them that the accuracy isn't always there. And as always, as with Democratic political polls and things of that nature, you can usually plus or minus a few votes. So you got to wonder if they didn't already hit their 2.0 and this is just the average. TNA Impact for September 30th, 2010 scored a 1.2 viewership rating. Reaction scored a 0.6. And this goes back to my last installment, my last couple installments. They bleeded the main event into Reaction again, and with the 0.6 that Reaction got, 683,000 people watched this, and you gotta wonder, we see what they're doing, and it's still not working. Come on, a 0.6, you're gonna bleed your main event into your Reaction, and then nothing really happened anyway. Again, Reaction with a 0.6, Impact 1.2. The hour before the SmackDown debut last week, they did a countdown to SmackDown. And I told my buddy when we were watching this, we should have watched the countdown, but he kind of seen how WWE treats pay-per-view hours before countdowns to them, and we weren't really interested, and the rating reflects it. The 10-1 hour before SmackDown scored a 0.5, so one or two people watched that. Moving on into the news of wrestling this week and end of last week, current. Former ROH star Tyler Black in WWE developmental, as we all knew, but he is to make his WWE debut as Seth Rollins. So don't expect him to go far. That's just a prediction. When we last reported Jeff Hardy's progress, we told you a court date the end of last month or the beginning of this month. Turns out that court date was just a formal appearance and didn't really resolve anything in the case, as Jeff Hardy returns to court on October 25th, 2010. Political news related to wrestling, even though Linda doesn't think so. Linda, as of 10-6, 10 points, or 10-5 rather, 10 points behind in the Connecticut Senate race. That'll go into our main topic. WWE to introduce, focus, or to pay, get this, what we've been talking about for weeks, in a nutshell, uh, to introduce focus groups paying up to $75 per participant to find out what the fans want. You'd think it'd be pretty easy with all the feedback on all the other review shows that they could save a few bucks and just pay attention and you'll save some money. Uh, Mick Foley gets a $100,000 book advance on his newest book and donates it all to charity, showing once again that even though he might not mean much to wrestling, he's still a good guy. WWE throwing back to him, by the way, as he more or less came to the defense in the Senate race and saying, don't just blame WWE, it's all wrestling programs, and, you know, more or less like to kind of throw some blame in all the wrestling promotions directions instead of just one. So now Vince and him are mutual buddies, as Mick isn't doing anything to hurt the WWE, which in turn isn't hurting Linda, even though I think Linda can do that. You'll hear more on that in a minute. November 29th is rumored to be the next 3-hour Raw. Offhand, I also believe that's to be in Philadelphia, so maybe I'll look into it the next week or two, maybe breaking down and going to see that. I just hope I don't contradict myself and they start to make the next week or two, the next month the next 7 weeks or so entertaining, because then even though I'll have to buy the tickets beforehand, I'll actually look forward to what I'm going to seeing, as you've heard in previous videos where I went to the end of June Raw in Philly, and that was hit or miss. You kind of seen it coming. Pee Wee Herman to be the guest host of Raw November 1st. Somebody explain the relevance of that to me, because I don't understand that. Tribute to the Troops 2010 to be held at a military base within the United States, where the company usually travels to Iraq or Afghanistan and performs for the troops there. It's rumored that it'll be held in the United States. One part confirmed on this last news bit. Second part kind of theorized and seemed to be coming in the next week or so. Edge traded to SmackDown and CM Punk going to Raw. So you gotta wonder. Edge, I guess they think that Edge lit up Raw as much as he can, and they can ride this out as he goes over to SmackDown and tries to hype it up. But CM Punk, every time he goes to Raw, it really doesn't do him any favors. He winds up going back to SmackDown because it seems to work for him there. As weird as that may be, you'd think he'd be able to work both shows in heel and face roles. It wouldn't really be so hard, but hey, who knows? Today's show topic: Linda McMahon and how wrestling, in her opinion, shouldn't be relevant to the Senate race. Now, I haven't really gotten into this, but I'm going to use the next 10 minutes literally to kind of outline my feelings on this and the situation. As we said in the news, she's 10 points behind where it was a close race at one point. And every time Linda's asked certain questions that aren't on her script, she kind of tries to dodge away and not answer the question at all, which, when it gets brought up in a form like that, like she just did a televised thing last week that is on YouTube, she ducks away from all the questions that people really want the answers to. And she's quoted as saying that the Connecticut voters aren't interested in wrestling. Well, they wouldn't be asking these related questions if they weren't interested, especially when being the chief operating officer, chief executive officer rather, of the company up until your bid for Senate is the only thing on your resume relevant to you running for Senate. So start answering the questions. Just a bullets and points here. As I said before, CEO of World Wrestling Entertainment is really the only thing on her resume to validate this Senate race. That and WWE had plenty of money to entertain this Senate race. Um, a couple of things that don't add up with this. As a company, they accept World Wrestling Entertainment accepted $10 million in Connecticut tax money for WWE to, quote, create jobs, while at the same time, the company was downsizing when, if you followed my quarterly results a couple videos back, this company always has an operating capital from quarter to quarter of $200+ million. They didn't need to downsize right away. They downsized before the economic downturn was really starting to show. One might say smart business, but when you had plenty of money and you're continuing to make money on crap anymore, but you're continuing to carry a balance sheet, carry figures over into the next quarter where you have plenty of money, uh, you gotta wonder why they did this. Especially when they say we'll create jobs, and then behind the scenes they're getting rid of their own people. Uh, she's quoted as saying in this interview last week, the wrestlers do have insurance as we pay for any injuries that occur in the ring. But the flaw with this is, and what seems to be common pattern with World Wrestling Entertainment is, if you can't come back, fulfill your contract, and make the money back for the company, then they deem you unusable. They buy your contract out, and you go back to the independents, or you live comfortably on what you've made, or you bail out of wrestling altogether. Whatever the scenario is. You can't brag about insurance when you have practices that people have seen for years, decades, and now are just starting to be paid attention to because of this political move you decided to make. All this heat everyone knew about, but it wasn't brought out until she decided to run. And the fact that she doesn't want to answer any of these questions makes you wonder, well, you knew this is the only thing you have going for you when you made the bid. So why wouldn't you take these questions head on? And even if you have to, be an anti-Vince and assert yourself in that seat. Answer the questions. Again, they're asking them for a reason. They would not be asking them if everyone agreed with you, Linda, and no one sees the relevance between wrestling and politics. But you've made wrestling your whole life, and now you're jumping into politics. So how can you not expect the question? She continues to dodge questions about drug abuse and steroid abuse in the company, continues to cite the wellness policy, its achievements, and programs within said wellness policy. But it's a known fact that until the Chris Benoit murder-suicide, the wellness policy was lagging. If you were a current superstar and you were making money, you were kind of passed through with no real problems. As we reported before with the wellness policy videos, Chris Benoit failed 3 separate times, which shows that WWE was more concerned about his star power than following their own guidelines and benching him until he produced a clean drug test. This is case in point. Until Chris Benoit did what he did, the wellness policy was hit or miss. Now it's in full force again, and it was kind of reinstated with Eddie Guerrero, but then took on a whole new life with the Chris Benoit thing. But it wasn't majorly taken back on until Chris Benoit. So you gotta wonder, if wrestling's the only thing you got going for you, why does Linda McMahon think that answering these questions is going to hurt her? Everyone knows it's been her only job title for years. It's the only thing she brings. Answer the questions, as embarrassing as they may be. Your people want honesty. They don't want to see you dodge a question because then it looks like you're not prepared. Answer the questions. You can always do damage control. Until next time, feel free to visit WrestleTalkShow.webs.com for this video and many more, as well as a completely interactive website, cwecompany@gmail.com, for all fan-related questions, comments, concerns, anything related to wrestling or this show. Send it there. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and until next time, thanks for listening. Have a good afternoon.